proposition is finding 12 distinct voices every year in Europe, talents that we look for through the application process. The model is different than many festivals in that the artists come and we encourage them to stay for the duration of the festival. Everybody eats together, everybody sort of hangs out at the jam session. We encourage kind of collaboration. This year we introduced the feedback sessions. So it's kind of different in that we sort of bring together a community over a few days, and we lower the barriers between promoters, curators, journalists and the musician.
I had an idea about creating a band that had a very open and an open sound that where you can kind of always have the feeling that this could go anywhere you want in an instant. And I also wanted to make a band that had kind of sensitive, almost like chamber orchestra vibe to it. Because when I first started to get into more free improvised music, it seemed to me that a lot of it was had a very, should we call it, aggressive sound with a very like we're gonna turn this rip this house apart, and that wasn't really my thing. It wasn't really my temper, so to speak.
It's a nice festival because it's rather small. Kenneth is doing a really nice job putting bands here who have something to say and who he thinks will have really a voice in jazz in the future.
With the first CD, which was about Tommy Moustache, it just started as an idea. Actually it started that we just did gigs and I sometimes told a random story about the song because it's instrumental, so you can make up anything. And then people really liked it. They were like, yeah, I could really hear the camels there, and I don't know. So, yeah, stuff like that. And then people started saying, yeah, it's really cool. The stories really help to understand the music. And we thought, yeah, let's go over the top commercial, so we can sell a lot of stuff because nobody buys CDs anymore. So we can just sell random shit, and we like to make pictures of ourselves and put them on banners. It's a hobby, and we can now do it without any shame.
Since we all have, I think, really different background, and that also influences the music. For example, I guess Kalle, guitar player, has a kind of popish background. Karl has, I think, metal rock background, and you have done some electronic music and something a little bit folkish, and my past is connected with classical piano and free improvisation. So I guess that this thing that we do all together, it's a mixture of all of us. The idea has been to make other music sound as it's our own.
Really good quality of the musicians, and yeah, last night the jam session was also great. Like, I could see musicians from different bands actually collaborating and people wanting to go to the stage, and that's why it's really cool.
It sounds like sheep getting waxed.
Exactly where it came from.
The sound of waxed sheep. It's pretty hard to describe, I think.
We jam together, a lot improvise, how to speak, and we record ourselves every time, and just looking backwards and then listen to it and trying to figure it out, what works for us and what doesn't. So mainly we are based on improvisation, but 50 on 50, like.
We all compose and we bring our songs together, and like, of course, times change. We don't have so much time anymore. But when we were all studying together, when we met in Linz, we had really time to get the pieces together and to try out stuff. And so we have kind of a concrete plan where it can go, but of course it can go somewhere else all the time. We don't have a band leader. We try to work it out democratically, yeah.
I mean, I think jazz, probably like some other genres, it's kind of a lifetime thing. You know, people don't just do it because they got a jazz job. You know, I mean, they wouldn't, would they? Because, you know, there's not that much money in it. But, you know, people do it because they love it. So people are with it for life, really.
SK was a duet at first with Mathieu, but we started at the conservatory and we tried to practice some different kind of music, New Orleans and stuff, but also pop music and playing like in a free way, mixing every influence we had. And after we did it in quartet, but we really tried to work on only one kind of music. The idea was New Orleans, free New Orleans. But we also work on stride music and stuff. But the idea is to play old music, old jazz music in a really contemporary way, but also to keep something from this music, like the dancing, trying to play this music well and with some mistake in a way. But we control this mistake.
So actually my music is a lot inspired from classical music from the 20th century, like composers like Stravinsky and people like this that I really like. And I actually come from classical music, and my parents are also musicians, so I heard a lot of music on a very early age. And then I studied jazz, and I guess then everything got mixed together. But I mean, I listen to a lot of different stuffs, so jazz things, of course, but the way I compose is very intuitive.
But I think what we can see is this breaking down of the boundaries between the different genres. And I don't think there's a single band anymore that comes to 12 Points that could be said to be playing pure jazz. They're always drawing on influence, and of course that's a result of the kind of very promiscuous listening that the musicians of this generation do. And so I think if we think about where the music is headed, it's not that it's a single direction, it's that it's spreading out now. And it's populating other areas.
To reach beauty in a way that is very fragile. I think that's a big thing what it's all about. And there's also a kind of, we also try to reach as much freedom as we can inside the repertoire, because we like to play repertoire also. But it's a lot about fragility and that kind of tension in not having a lot of info. So basically the repertoire is super simple, and the repertoire takes care that we can be very free inside of the tunes, and the tunes feel like songs, and it's all very fragile.
It's all about fragments, okay? Fragments, I mean small phrases, melodic phrases, or intervals. We work so much on intervals, improvising, going from one fragment to another. And the two guys here, they have a very special sound, very personal sound, let's say creativity to the composition, because they are mainly improvised. So That's it, I think, the main. We work on parameters, which are timbre, rhythm, harmony, and intervals, always.
As an organization, it's part of our DNA to always think about what is the future of jazz. So that is, of course, both from a business point of view, but a lot of course, from an artistic point of view.
I do a lot of work in sort of commercial electronic music, and was looking for ways to incorporate that into the sort of music that really stimulates me, and that was how Big Spoon was formed. It's basically me being able to utilize the full potential of all of the sort of toys, effects pedals and things that I have, and still to try to write frameworks where I get to play and interact and improvise with the other members of the band.
The concept behind it was actually largely formed by the other two, and then they told me what sort of band it was going to be. I guess it's trying to marry our sort of collective love of investigating things rhythmically. There's a lot of influence from like Meshuggah, primarily was kind of the first kind of universal reference we had, and then taking that increasingly there's more and more kind of South Indian rhythmic practice sneaking in, fascinations with Turkish things, and then just trying to marry by necessity quite a sort of focused and stringent process with a kind of more chaotic, haptic, sort of noisy improvising side of us, and just trying to see how they can interact with one another, how they can sit alongside one another and try and form some sort of coherent art at the end of it.
It's always useful when you have like a bunch of bands that have been chosen by a festival or a promoter that sort of knows what they're doing. They're all in one place, and you can sit and see 12 bands. It's pretty useful.
We try to find our influence in traditional classical music, European, such as Grieg and Ravel and Chopin, and also the modern jazz sound with free language, and also the language from the 60s, where swing. But we are into music, and it's not very, it doesn't have any strict genre to fit into. We just love music.
Fast forward 10 or 15 years, I mean, jazz will continue to be evolving, but jazz in Europe will have more of its own sound, because I think it's still quite young.